Around 60,000 years ago, the Earth was locked in one of the harshest phases of the Ice Age. In the higher latitudes, endless stretches of taiga forest and frozen steppe reached all the way to the horizon. By day, weak sunlight filtered through dense cloud cover. By night, temperatures could plunge to -20 degrees Celsius. In this world, sound was not a background element. It was a survival signal that every living creature had to learn to hear and interpret. Wind howled through rocky mountain passes, striking ice-crusted tree trunks and producing low, sustained tones that could last for hours. A sudden shift in wind direction might signal an approaching change in weather or hint at the movement of a distant animal. Within this soundscape, the noises made by predators were direct warnings. The deep roar of a cave lion, the long howl of an ancient wolf, or the sharp hiss of a snow leopard were all signals that prehistoric humans had to recognize instantly. Even subtler sounds, like the crunch of footsteps on packed snow or the snap of a branch, often meant a predator was approaching at close range. A delay of just a few seconds in reacting could mean death. Before language existed, our ancestors relied on a sensory communication system in which eyes, ears, and muscle reflexes worked in close coordination. Eye contact conveyed immediate intent, but in the low visibility conditions of the frozen forests, hearing became the primary information channel. People of that era had to memorize and categorize hundreds of distinct sounds, from the brush of fur against tree bark, to the wing beats of hunting birds, to the unique noise made by each prey species when fleeing. This prehistoric soundscape was a natural information network shared by all living things. Every sound carried a layer of meaning, warning of danger, pointing toward a food source, or signaling the presence of kin. The ability to read and interpret this network of sounds not only kept humans alive, but also gave them a clear evolutionary advantage. At a biological level, decoding sound was a complex process. Sound waves struck the eardrum, passed through the tiny bones of the middle ear, and were converted into neural signals sent to the auditory cortex. But for prehistoric humans, it did not stop at simple perception. The brain linked each sound to memory and past experience. A snapping twig might recall an earlier predator encounter or signal the seasonal migration of grazing herds. The combination of immediate perception and stored knowledge formed an almost instant warning mechanism. Sound also shaped hunting and survival strategies. A group of hunters could use the noise of the wind to mask their footsteps, or rely on echoes in the terrain to locate each other when visibility was poor. In frozen forests, where sightlines might extend only a few dozen meters, being able to accurately hear and determine the direction of a sound was a life or death skill. Crucially, humans did not just listen. They deliberately produced sounds to influence the soundscape. The clack of stones struck together could signal to distant group members. A short whistle could direct a change in movement. A coordinated shout could panic prey animals into flight. These sounds were both communication tools and tactical elements, laying the groundwork for more complex forms of messaging in the future. The prehistoric soundscape was never static. It shifted with the seasons, weather, and animal migrations. Winter was quieter, with sound traveling farther through cold, dry air, allowing warnings to be heard from greater distances. In summer, the constant noise of insects and flowing water created a dense background that could mask weaker signals. Understanding and adapting to these shifts was an essential part of the survival strategy. In short, during the Ice Age, sound was a universal language of life, a system of signals that humans, long before they spoke in words, already knew how to read and use with skill. Living in such a complex and threatening acoustic environment honed our ancestors' ability to analyze, remember, and respond instantly to auditory information, laying a critical foundation for the later emergence of language and modern communication. Part 2. Before words, hand signals, calls, and the rhythm of stone. Before humans could arrange sounds into fully formed sentences, their communication system relied on a combination of hand signals and simple sounds. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups, such as the San in southern Africa or the Hadza in Tanzania, show that this form of coordination is not only effective, but also well-suited to survival conditions. These groups use a shared set of standardized hand movements and body gestures within the community to convey information without making unnecessary noise. In hunting contexts, silence was essential. Even a soft human voice could be detected by animals with keen hearing. As a result, prehistoric hunters often relied on hand gestures, raising a hand to signal stop, pointing in a direction, or shaping the fingers to indicate actions such as advance, surround, or retreat. These signals were designed to be easily recognized from a distance and not mistaken for other movements, even in limited visibility. Alongside gestures, prehistoric people still needed simple sounds to communicate when they could not see each other. These were not full words, but discrete auditory signals with specific meanings. A short whistle might indicate location, a quick tongue click could serve as a warning, and a low whoop could gather the group from far away. The ability to create rhythm by striking stones or bones together also played a key role. A steady beat could guide the group's walking pace during migration or pursuit of prey. Conversely, rapid, irregular pounding could signal urgent danger. In some cases, striking stones to create resonant echoes might help locate group members when operating in visually obstructed environments like forests or fog. Archaeological evidence supports this theory. Many stone tools show wear patterns not only from cutting, but also from repeated percussion at a fixed point, suggesting they were used to make sound. Some sites have yielded hollow bones with evenly spaced holes, possibly primitive musical instruments similar to flutes. The famous find at Divjebabe Cave in Slovenia, a cave bare bone with drilled holes, sparked intense debate over whether Neanderthals could have made and played such instruments as part of their communication system. These communication forms served not just tactical purposes, but also social ones. A whistle or rhythmic beat might mark the start of a communal ritual, reinforcing group unity and synchrony. Coordinating action through a shared system of hand signals and simple sounds increased hunting efficiency, reduced the risk of accidents, and strengthened cohesion in small communities. Importantly, this coordination required a degree of social consensus and collective memory. Each signal had to have a fixed meaning, learned and remembered by all members. This suggests that even before the development of complex language, our ancestors were capable of creating and maintaining a shared dictionary of behaviors and sounds, a structured form of proto-language. In summary, before spoken language emerged, the communication system of prehistoric humans rested on two pillars: gesture and simple sound. Gestures ensured the necessary silence in dangerous hunting environments, while short, distinct sounds allowed rapid transmission of information over distance or in low visibility. Together, they formed an effective signal network, laying the groundwork for the structured languages that would follow. Art 3. Neanderthals and the ability to speak. The most important evidence for Neanderthal speech capability comes from the Kebara II fossil, discovered in Israel in 1983. In this skeleton, archaeologists found a hyoid bone, a small structure located at the base of the tongue that plays a key role in anchoring the muscles controlling the tongue and larynx. The shape and size of the Kebara II hyoid are almost identical to those of modern humans, indicating that Neanderthals possessed the anatomical foundation for finely controlling airflow, tongue, and lips. However, the hyoid bone alone is not enough to confirm language ability. To gain deeper insight, scientists analyzed Neanderthal skull and oral cavity structures, focusing on the position of the larynx. In Homo sapiens, the larynx sits lower in the throat, creating a wider pharyngeal cavity, a resonating chamber that allows the production of a wide variety of vowels. Reconstructions suggest that in Neanderthals, the larynx was also low, but possibly slightly higher than in us, reducing the pharyngeal cavity volume. This would have directly affected their ability to produce long, clear vowels, an essential component of complex language. Acoustic models based on Neanderthal skull data show they could produce many consonants and vowels, but with a narrower vowel range than Homo sapiens. Whereas modern humans can easily create distinct contrasts between vowels, such as E, A, and O, Neanderthals may have been more limited in this regard. As a result, while they could produce syllables, these sound sequences may have lacked the diversity and precision needed for fully complex sentences like those in modern languages. This leads to an important conclusion. The ability to produce speech sounds does not automatically mean possessing a fully developed language. Scientific debate on this topic continues. Some researchers argue that Neanderthals had only a limited system of vocal signals for basic needs, such as warning of danger, calling to group members, or signaling during hunts. This view assumes that vowel limitations reduce their ability to convey abstract ideas. Others contend that even with a narrower vowel range, Neanderthals could have developed a functional language if supported by social and cognitive needs. Genetic evidence adds weight to the latter argument. DNA analysis from Neanderthal bones shows they carried a FOXP2 gene, almost identical to that of Homo sapiens, a gene directly linked to the ability to learn and control language in modern humans. This strengthens the hypothesis that Neanderthals were not only capable of speech, but could also learn and remember complex sound sequences. From an evolutionary perspective, the presence of speech capability in Neanderthals paints a different picture of prehistoric communication. If they could create stable sound combinations and share them within their groups, it would mean they had a foundation for transmitting information across time and space. For example, describing prey locations, warning of threats, or sharing hunting experience. However, it is important to note that there is still no direct archaeological evidence of a complete Neanderthal language. There are no written records or symbolic inscriptions, and our knowledge is based mostly on anatomical inference, acoustic modeling, and genetics. The question, did Neanderthals have speech or just calls, remains unresolved. In summary, current scientific data supports the conclusion that Neanderthals had a sufficiently advanced vocal apparatus to produce a wide variety of complex sounds, including both vowels and consonants. Although their vowel range may have been narrower than that of Homo sapiens, their anatomy, FOXP2 gene, and indirect evidence strongly suggest they were capable of developing a form of proto-language. This may have been an important step in the evolutionary history of communication, laying the groundwork for the emergence of modern human language. Part 4. Group communication in the hunt. Hunting large Ice Age animals was a complex operation requiring tight coordination among multiple individuals. Prey such as bison, wild horses, reindeer, or woolly mammoths were not only strong but also fast and highly alert. Success depended on a strategy built around three key elements: splitting into subgroups, blocking escape routes, and driving the prey toward a disadvantageous position. In all of this, communication was the deciding factor, and sound played a central role. At long range, vocal calls signaled positions so members could track each other's locations and the prey's movements. A short, low-pitched call might mean in position, while a prolonged sound could indicate the herd's direction of travel. These signals were standardized within the community, so everyone understood their meaning without further explanation. When closing in on the prey, sound could also be used as a psychological weapon. A coordinated roar from the hunting party, amplified by the pounding of spears or clashing of stones, could startle animals and force them to change direction. This tactic exploited prey survival instincts. When confronted with sudden, loud noises, they often bolted in the opposite direction, creating opportunities to drive them toward an ambush. However, sound alone was not enough. Coordination between sound and hand signals created a dual communication system, similar to how modern armies combine hand signals with radio communication to maintain secrecy and efficiency. At close range, hunters might use hand gestures to order silence, change formation, or signal an attack. At greater distances, sound signals would carry commands. Group hunting placed unique evolutionary pressure on the human mind. Each member had to hear, understand, and respond accurately within seconds. Even small mistakes, misinterpreting a signal, or reacting too slowly could result in the prey escaping or put the entire group in danger. The ability to process information quickly, integrating auditory cues, visual input, and experience, thus became a major survival advantage. Another factor was the ability to synchronize actions. When multiple hunters shouted or made noise together, the combined effect was far more powerful than the sum of individual voices. This not only had a stronger psychological impact on prey, but also reinforced group solidarity. In dangerous situations, a unified shout acted as a declaration of collective strength, helping each individual maintain resolve. These communication strategies were also shaped by terrain and environment. In open woodland, sound traveled but could scatter easily. In narrow valleys, echoes could amplify calls over long distances but also distort direction. Prehistoric people had to learn to adjust the volume and type of sound to the landscape for maximum effect. Archaeological and ethnographic evidence supports this scenario. Observations of modern hunter-gatherer groups, such as the Inuit or the San, show they still combine sound and gesture when hunting large animals. This suggests that the dual communication model has existed for tens of thousands of years and likely developed among both Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens. Beyond tactics, group hunting communication also laid the groundwork for language development. The deliberate use of sound with stable meanings shared by all members created a basic vocabulary. Over time, these signals could be expanded, combined, and abstracted, eventually giving rise to structured language. In short, in the context of Ice Age hunting, sound was not just a means of sharing information. It was a tactical tool and a driver of cognitive evolution. The seamless coordination of calls, shouts, and hand signals increased success rates, protected group safety, and laid the first building blocks for the complex communication systems humans use today. Part 5. From Sound to Language. The evolution of human communication did not occur in a single leap, but unfolded as a long accumulation over hundreds of thousands of years. From isolated signals, whistles, tongue clicks, stone strikes, humans gradually transitioned to structured sequences of sounds, where each sound no longer carried meaning on its own, but combined with others to create more complex information. This marks the fundamental difference between pre-linguistic communication and true language. Instead of conveying intent through a single sound, humans began using ordered sound sequences, multiplying the possibilities for expression many times over. This transition required the deep involvement of the brain, particularly two key regions, Broca's area and Wernicke's area. Broca's area, located in the frontal lobe, is responsible for sentence construction, arranging sounds into logical order, and controlling the articulatory organs such as the tongue, lips, and larynx. Wernicke's area, in the temporal lobe, handles understanding the meaning of words and sentences, linking sounds to concepts stored in memory. The coordination between these two regions allowed humans not only to produce speech, but also to comprehend complex sound sequences from others. In Neanderthals, anatomical evidence from skulls and endocasts indicates that they possessed brain structures similar to Homo sapiens in both these areas. This supports the hypothesis that they had a capacity for language processing far beyond that of other primates. Additionally, Genetic evidence shows that Neanderthals carried a version of the FOXP2 gene almost identical to that of modern humans. This gene is considered a crucial switch for the ability to learn and control language. In humans, mutations in FOXP2 cause severe difficulties in pronunciation and sentence construction. Underscoring its importance for communication, the emergence of proto-language brought clear evolutionary advantages. It enabled the transmission of information beyond the limits of time and space. A hunter could describe in detail the location of a herd seen the previous day, or warn about a dangerous area, even if the listener had never been there. Knowledge was no longer dependent solely on direct experience. It could be passed from one person to another and from one generation to the next. The ability to recount events greatly expanded the scope of collective knowledge. Hunting strategies, tool-making techniques, or observations about weather patterns could be preserved in the community's memory as stories. With shared knowledge, each member of the group did not need to rely solely on trial and error. They could learn from the successes and failures of others, saving time and reducing risk. Proto-language also contributed to the formation of rituals and symbols. Once humans could communicate about abstract concepts, they began to develop community bonding practices, from sharing food to burying the dead. Rituals carried not only spiritual significance, but also strengthened social alliances, a critical factor in the competitive and harsh environment of the Ice Age. Groups with language developed faster, not only culturally, but also technologically. The ability to convey precise instructions for crafting tools shortened the learning curve and ensured the accuracy of designs. Instead of each person discovering how to sharpen a stone or shape a spearhead on their own, they could learn directly from verbal instruction and demonstration. This accelerated innovation and the spread of technology within the community. Socially, language made it possible to maintain alliances beyond the immediate family. Groups could negotiate, share resources, or coordinate hunts with other groups through verbal agreements. This large-scale cooperation greatly increased survival chances, especially in hunting campaigns that required dozens of participants. From an evolutionary standpoint, language created a positive feedback loop. Groups that communicated better developed more advanced tools, cultures, and social networks. These advancements, in turn, increased the need for richer communication, driving further refinement of language. This was one of the main forces that propelled Homo sapiens, and to some extent Neanderthals, to the top of the food chain. The end of this process can be imagined as follows. On a freezing night, a group of people sit around a fire. The golden light flickers on their faces, and their breath rises in thin plumes. One person begins to produce a sequence of sounds, not to warn or command, but to tell a story about a successful hunt, about how the prey ran, about how the team worked together. The others listen, responding with quiet laughter or short remarks. This is no longer communication for immediate survival. It is the sharing of memory, emotion, and knowledge, something that will live on in collective memory longer than any single meal. That moment marks the birth of a new capacity, the ability to turn sound into a tool for preserving and transmitting knowledge across generations. From then on, the story becomes part of culture, and culture becomes the foundation that allowed humans to rise above all other species, stepping into the age of history.